What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the 12 Games of Christmas presented by the Unlockables podcast. I'd like to thank you for tuning in, wherever, whenever in time and space you might be located, to our end of the year celebration, celebrating the 12 best games I have played this year, culminating in Game of the Year. You heard that right. 12 days, 12 episodes of exciting video games. And not just video games, people, friends, guests of the show that I've had on this year in a celebration of all things Unlockables, all things Christmas, all things video games in the year 2022. I hope you've enjoyed the first couple of episodes of the 12 Games of Christmas. We are in the thick of it now. Had some guests on, talked about some great games, specifically not naming them because at the time of this recording, I haven't decided what the order of the episode release will be. But after the 12 days of straight episodes of straight video games conclude, there will be an episode the following week to discuss Game of the Year, picking the best game I played in this year, 2022. Not necessarily a game that has to be played in 2022, as a lot of the games on this list did not come out in 2022. Some of them did, some of them didn't. We'll just have to see. But today, I am going at it alone. I'm going to be doing this episode solo. We've had a couple guests on, a couple great friends of the show in previous episodes, but in the spirit of Unlockables, I did do a lot of the episodes this year solo. I'd probably say maybe 1 out of every 3 episodes was a solo episode I did by myself, combined with guest episodes. So being in the spirit of the show, I did want to have an episode where it was just me talking about a game that I really enjoyed playing this year. I think this will be the only solo episode out of all of them. The remaining 11 games will have guests on that played the games that I picked to be celebrated at the end of this year. Now, considering that I've hid the episode titles, you're probably excited to get into today's game, what we're talking about. And of course, today's game is none other than Nobody Saves the World. Nobody Saves the World, better known by its Christian name Cartoon Network Diablo. It's developed and published by Drinkbox Studios. It was released exclusively on Microsoft platforms on January 18th, 2022, and everywhere else on April 14th, 2022. I was actually surprised. I was under the impression that this game came out last year, but it must have just been so close to January and the start of the year that I thought it was in 2021, releasing around the same time as Legends Arceus, Elden Ring, and Horizon Forbidden West. So releasing amongst busy company at the start of the year. This game has a 84 rating on Metacritic on the Nintendo Switch, which is where I played it. There was a varying amount of different ratings on Metacritic depending on where you played the game. I guess that Metacritic splits up the scores by platform now because the Nintendo Switch version 84 was by far the highest ranked one. I think like the PC one was like just under 80 at a 79. Last I checked, I'd have to double check and see. But interesting that Metacritic splits that shit up now. 8.25 out of 10 on Game Informer, 9 out of 10 on GameSpot, 7 out of 10 on IGN, 80 out of 100 on PC Gamer. So a relatively well-received game, IGN giving it the lowest score at 7 out of 10. Rare criticism from IGN scoring a game so low that everybody else had in the 8s and 9s. So what are you doing, IGN? You've had some pretty crazy scores on this so far. I don't know. But if you haven't heard of Drinkbox Studios, they are a fantastic smaller developer. They put out things such as Tales from Space, Guacamelee, and more recently, Nobody Saves the World. Guacamelee, I believe there are 2 Guacamelee games. I think there's 1 and 2. I believe there was a sequel with how popular that game was. And not many awards or things to speak of right now, because this game just came out in 2022, and at the time of this episode airing, we will be getting into awards season. I guess the Game Awards will have maybe happened or something like that, and all the publications probably will be putting out their lists for Game of the Year's, best games, things of that nature. Everybody's really just kind of waiting on God of War Ragnarok to come out and to finalize all of their decisions in this year. Not many things to speak of on the award front for this game specifically. Christmas meter in this game, I gave it 3 out of 10 candy canes. There's a man with a beard. There's like wizards, stuff like that. Not really anything that has to do with the spirit of Christmas. The wand that you have has a star on it, so kind of stretching, but not really a game that is in the Christmas theme. This game has a lot more to do with like calamity and the end of the world and killing stuff. So I played this game probably April, May 2022 of this year when it came out. I could easily just check the list of games that I've completed this year and see what date I put down that I completed it to know, but I'm too lazy to do that. So it was probably late spring that I played this game when it came out on the Switch. It was on my radar when I saw some trailers for it, thought it looked really cool, but I was like, oh, it's just, when you watch the trailers for Nobody Saves the World, it seems like a Switch game, and that's what I wanted to play it on. So I was like, I looked up, I was like, is there going to be a Switch version? Sure enough, 3 months later, the Switch version would come out in April as opposed to the Microsoft release in January. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a no-brainer. I'll just wait for it then. Wish I kind of would have waited a couple games to come out on the Switch. One game that I played on the Xbox last year, Death's Door, did eventually have a release on the Switch, or it's going to have a release on the Switch. So I kind of wish I would have waited. Learned my lesson on that one. It's okay to wait to play games. You don't have to be part of the conversation. But picked it up, played it. It's a brief, I finished it in about 13 to 15 hours, I would say. It's a pretty brief top-down ARPG in like the vein of like the Diablo style, or like if you're looking for like a top-down comparison, kind of like that 2.5D like top-down Z-axis kind of view that you get in like Hades, kind of from the top down. And I've been getting a lot more into these games ever since playing Diablo 3, being the traditional ARPG. Baldur's Gate, got to experience some of that with my friends, and Hades, those kind of top-down games where you have abilities and stuff. I think that's been really cool. It's a genre that I didn't really have much experience with until Diablo 3, and I've been becoming more and more a fan of it. So when I saw this, I was like, oh yeah, this looks very much like Diablo, and that was my jam. So I definitely wanted to pick it up and check it out. Easy, no-brainer. These smaller indie studios have been killing it lately, and this year especially, there's been some really, really great indie games. Death's Door last year, Nobody Saves the World this year, Stray, just some really, really great stuff from people that aren't trying to kill each other in the quote-unquote console wars. So the premise of this game, the character you take control of is a nobody. It's a wand-wielding, I believe they call you a naked white baby, as you are proclaimed by the NPCs. You are tasked with finding the famous mage Nostramagus, who has gone missing as the world is on the brink of calamity. Pretty straightforward stuff. I think that's a pretty cool... The premise of the game is enough to push you forward and be like, oh, okay, like where's this guy I'm looking for, and what's going on in this world? And pretty much right away when the game starts, you get the game's main hook, which is your character finds a wand, or you take a wand that gives you the ability to transform your pale, unassuming body into 17, 18 different forms, which are the game's classes. And there are a ton of different forms. So think of it as like you're picking a class in Diablo, but you're not locked into that class. You can switch on the fly. You can set up like a wheel to kind of switch out different forms to kind of fit whatever situation that you're in. And the 17 forms are all over the place. You can be something as lowly as a rat to as powerful as a dragon, a necromancer, a robot, a monk, a guard, a mermaid, a horse. So they really, really put their brains to work in thinking of all the different forms that they wanted you to be able to transform into in this game. And it works really well. The forms you unlock give you a lot of a variety in how you want to approach the gameplay. Certain forms have abilities associated with them, and you level up the form and your abilities by actually completing challenges associated with that form. So if you're trying to work and level up the rat, you have to do certain things with the rat. One of the rat's moves like causes poison damage. So one of the challenges is like to stack poison damage on enemies and kill them while they're poisoned. Doing things like that will complete challenges, gain your form experience will level up the form, which will make the form more powerful, give you access to more abilities, give you access to skills that you can equip that kind of change the way you play the game. So it really incentivizes, this system really incentivizes exploration of different types of forms. It doesn't just want you to find one thing and stick with that the whole game. It really wants you to experiment. And it feels good to experiment because your character level is separate from the form level. So your character's always getting stronger, getting more health, getting more magic points to cast and use your abilities with. And then the forms level up and constantly unlock new things. And the challenges are easy enough to complete that you're not constantly feeling like, oh, I'm going a long stretch of time without unlocking anything. You're constantly unlocking new forms, new power-ups, new abilities, and things like that. So it really feels good. The sense of progression in this game feels really good that you're constantly getting things at which to change the way you play the game. When you progress far enough, when you level up enough and get far enough in the story, you can start to mix and match skills with different forms. So like, for example, like I mentioned, you have the rat form that has a bite ability that can cause poison. When you get to a certain level and unlock enough skills, you can, like, for example, let's say I pick the horse class, but I like moves from the rat class. I can pick some moves from the rat class and put them into my button prompts that I can have. Okay, I have two abilities from the horse class that I really like and 2 abilities from the rat class. And you can mix and match these kind of all over all the different classes, and it creates a smorgasbord of experimentation, because this game's main draw, the main challenges that you'll face in Nobody Saves the World, are these dungeons. And the dungeons all have different gimmicks to them, all have different themes to them. They have suggested level caps on the outside that say, hey, like, you probably should be this strong, otherwise the dungeon will be pretty tough. And the main mechanic of the dungeon is certain dungeons either allow or do not allow certain damage types. They'll buff certain damage types, weaken certain damage types. So all forms and abilities do a type of damage. There's slashing, there's blunt, there's light, there's dark. So there's different things like that, and different abilities, different attacks, different classes have different damage types. And so if you're going into a dungeon that, like, say, doesn't allow like blunt and dark, you'll want to configure your forms and configure your abilities to take advantage of the other types of damage. Or if a dungeon will tell you, hey, before you can kill an enemy, there'll be enemies in the dungeon that have barriers or have shields, and you can only break their shields with a certain type of damage, and then you'll be able to kill them. So you want to make sure that you have damage abilities, or a form and damage abilities in your classes that you put together that can help you get through the dungeon. And it creates a veritable smorgasbord, because each class has 4 abilities, and then some have like permanent skills that you can unlock. So if you multiply that by 18, it's like 70 something abilities spread over 18 classes, and there's a skill for each class, I think. So there's a lot of customization that you can do, a lot of ways to build different forms to take advantage of whatever you're coming up against. And you might think, well, why don't you just stick with one form if you can customize it? Because different forms also move at different speeds. So like the guard form, or like the standard soldier form, which you just get like a sword slash, he moves slower than the horse form. Like the horse form is like pretty fast. So it will, building a form to take advantage of the situation you are in is probably half the fun in this game. You might think it takes a long time, but it really doesn't. And you'll figure out your own play style too. I make it sound like there's infinite possibilities and be overwhelmed. You'll find out pretty quick the way you like to play and certain abilities that you like, and you'll be able to build different forms around that and get yourself through the game. Like I said, it's 13 to 15 hours. It doesn't take that long. I would say towards the end, I was ready for the game to be finished. And by that time that I was ready for the game to be finished, it was done. One of the criticisms I've seen levied against this game was like, there's not really any end game content. I don't know if they're planning any other DLCs or anything for this, but by the time I was done, I was ready to put it away, and I had a really great time with it. It was a short experience. It was a fun experience. It really itched that ARPG part of my brain that I'd been looking to play something like that this year. The story for Nobody Saves the World, it's pretty simple. Like I said, you're going off to save or find the wizard Nostramagus. It kind of gets tropey as you play through it, but I think the humor and the love and the care that went into crafting this world really makes it shine through. It really makes it feel like a lived-in world that has its own comedic identity. It's really, really great. And while the dungeons are the main draw of the game, the world has a lot of little nooks and crannies and caves and underground that you can go into, and it really encourages you to explore the different forms that you've unlocked, and it encourages you to keep unlocking new forms because certain forms are used in the worlds to complete puzzles, complete challenges, to get power-ups, to get rewards, to get into more difficult to reach areas. So for like example, if there are little holes in the side of a mountain, you turn into the rat form, you're small enough to go through those holes and enter into an area that maybe has a power-up or a fairy to boost your magic points or something of that nature. Not only are you exploring these dungeons, you're also exploring the world, and you're looking out for areas, and you're able to... The world is expansive enough that you don't run around at once and you're like, oh, I'm bored of this. It's expansive enough, but it's also intimate enough that you won't get lost and you'll easily remember things. So like there will, if you play this game, there will definitely be times where you run into something, you run into a puzzle, you run into an area where you're just like, I can't beat this right now, but you'll remember to come back to it because you're like, oh, and it really clicks too when you unlock that next form and you're like, oh, maybe I can use this here. And then it encourages you to want to run back to that area and try and unlock that puzzle. So I think the game does a really fantastic job in that way of being laid out in such a way that is easy to remember. And it's easy to remember places that have challenges to them. And it's kind of sticks in your brain. And then once you unlock it, a form in which you can use to complete that challenge, it makes you want to go back and do that. It makes you want to stray off that golden path of just shooting forward and completing the game. And you kind of have to, because the scaling, you'll definitely have to do some exploring and some combat and some side quests for people and things like that to level up and feel, but you level up enough and get forms enough, like I said at the start, that this won't feel like a chore because you'll feel like you're constantly making progress. And in today's day and age, to feel like you're constantly making progress through a game that's 13 to 15 hours long and feel like you've constantly made progress is pretty good. It's not a long, drawn-out experience. And this is even more important in today's age because in the live service models that we live in now, you have to constantly feel like you're getting progress and rewards to keep playing the game. And I think they implemented that in a really, really beautiful way. So yeah, this will be a bit of a shorter episode because it was literally just me talking. I highly recommend going to play Nobody Saves the World. If you can pick it up on sale, even better. I think I got it for $19.99. I think it was $20 when I got it. Definitely worth every penny. It's a fantastic 13 to 15 hour experience and just a lot of fun to just be mowing down baddies in the Diablo style game. It's really awesome. I highly recommend it. If you do go play it too, I want to say it's couch co-op. So I think you can play with people in the same living room on the couch, or I believe that you can play with people online too. Got big Castle Crasher vibes when my wife picked it up and was playing it with me for a little bit. Big Castle Crasher vibes, and I think that's awesome. I think the art style is a little bit of Castle Crashers too, or that Behemoth Studio art style. It's really, really awesome. So yeah, Nobody Saves the World is one of the 12 games that I thought was worthy of being talked about at the end of this year. Go and play it. It's fantastic. Like I said, a little bit of a shorter episode today, just because I don't have a guest to bounce conversation off of. But that's not the point. The point is to highlight the games that I want to highlight over these 12 days of Christmas celebration. And let's be honest, the shorter the episodes, the better they're going to be, because 12 days of me is a lot to handle. But I thank you if you've tuned in so far to every episode. I thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope you've been able to digest them in these small bite-sized chunks to which I've provided them. We're still going strong. We've still got more games to talk about, and I'm very, very excited to bring them to you. You know where to find me on social media, linktr.ee/Unlockables podcast. That has all my links and stuff. You can go there. Very excited to keep the winter celebration going. So, as always, I am Eric, and I hope you are having a holly jolly Christmas.